Welcome. This is Samantha Skelly, and you are listening to the Hungry for Happiness podcast, where we dig deep and discover how to reconnect into your body, heal your relationship to food, and finally feel the liberation and freedom you desire. Kleenex is encouraged, and pants are optional. What's up, Phoenixes, and welcome back to the Hungry for Happiness podcast. You are listening to episode 22 with Tara Whitney. In this episode, Tara and I speak about how the food and body disconnection among women ties into feminism. This was a juicy topic that I haven't actually addressed on the show yet, so I was fired up about hearing what Tara had to say about this. She also asked a question that I want you to think about. What could you actually accomplish if your fight with food and body didn't exist? Let this settle in, and once you have the answer, pop that into the Facebook group, and I'd love to check that out. Tara is a mother, CPA certified intuitive eating counselor, yoga life coach, and yoga teacher who runs an accounting consulting business. Tara's vision is to live in a time and place where women's lives are no longer ruled by food and the hatred of their body. I loved chatting to Tara, and I hope you enjoy this episode. I just want to remind you that we are currently enrolling for the Society, our signature group coaching program, which is a 6-month journey to finally end the battle you have with food and your body. This program is by application and invitation only, so when you apply, we'll hop on a call and we'll make sure that it is the perfect fit for you. If you go to www.hungryforhappiness.com/society application, all the details are there. I hope you enjoy this episode. What's up, Phoenixes, and welcome back to the Hungry for Happiness podcast. I'm super excited to be interviewing Tara Whitney today. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question we ask all our guests is, what is the number one thing about life that makes you feel most alive?
Well, that's a good one. So I realize about myself that I love living an inspired life. And not only feeling inspired when I inspire others, but inspiring, kind of like feeling inspired to go beyond myself as well. I'm a little bit of a challenge junkie, although I'm certainly not, skydiving or anything like that. But what makes me feel alive is often, getting people or just like offering them something that they can say, well, I didn't think that was possible, but oh my gosh, I think it might be. And then being able to go beyond any limits that they had for themselves, like, for example, I remember vividly this conversation. So I'm a CPA. I don't know if you know that about me, Samantha, but
I do not, but that is cool.
Well, it is in some ways, but so I'm an accountant, and one of probably the hardest things is that, we had to take this big exam. And when I got out of college, a lot of the people that I was working with were all studying for this exam. And I remember just talking to a few of my friends and just like saying, yeah, I know this is hard. I know we're working a ton, but we can do this, you guys, and it was like, and they all kind of looked at me like, oh, come on, Tara, really? Like, but it was like, it felt like it was either in my nature or what I just love to do, to just kind of be a little bit of this force of like, yeah, we can do it. We can do it together. And that it inspired me. It inspired them. And it really, it feels like where my spark is.
Very cool. Very cool. So what kinds of things do you do to inspire yourself? So if you're feeling like in a funk, or you're feeling like you need like to resource some inspiration into your life, like what kinds of things do you do?
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty consistent. Like I have some pretty consistent, like feel good practices. So I know that I can keep myself just kind of operating at a fairly high level if, sort of my core daily healthy practices are pretty high.
Yeah.
I notice, and those things are like regular exercise, enough sleep, And, you know, certain foods, obviously, as long as I'm nourishing myself in a healthy way, that really helps.
Yeah.
And then I get inspired often by just stillness. So I'll
Oh, that's
meditate,
such a good one.
because it's my way. Like I guess the other way to look at your question is like, what prevents me from feeling inspired? And what prevents me from feeling inspired is when I'm all up in my head and kind of a little down, right? And when I'm still and quiet and just kind of connect with my body and just tune in, then all of that, like those bullshit thoughts that just get in my way, like I can let them, I can like sort of navigate around them, right? I don't have to blow them up. I don't have to engage in them. I can just be still enough and just let them be there without them bringing me down.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. A lot of my clients, when we go through this work and when they're in the society and we're talking about all these things, it's so obvious to me, the ones who are consuming logically, but not yet willing to create the space and the silence to actually have the work integrate into their emotional experience. Because we can read all the books in the whole world, right? And we can consume all this information, but without the stillness and the silence, it's all just like, oh yeah, that's good to know, right? And so like the feedback I get from a lot of my clients is like, Sam, I understand this at a logical level and I don't yet feel it. And it's like, okay, well, we need to be okay with being silent. We need to be okay with the space. And I know for myself personally, you've read my book, so you know this, but it's like, I would do anything to distract myself. Like, those like fidget spinners that are like new now like if that was a thing when I was going through like my disordered eating stuff, like I'd have like fucking 100 fidget spinners because I was finding everything to distract myself from the actual problem or the issue, which was like, I need to be still with myself. I need to integrate into my body and I need to actually feel this pain. And so I think like now, and like, I'll be honest, like now doing nothing still feels weird to me because I'm an extrovert. I'm a busybody. I do love like getting my energy from other situations and things. And so for me to actually just like be still and be silent, it still feels awkward. And I know that's where that's where all the answers are. So it's like, how can I develop this appreciation for the stillness and the silence, which I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like everybody, I sucked at meditation and I still do. Right. Yeah. And something has really switched in me within the past year. And I think it's because, probably 6 out of 7 days a week, I'm just like, I got to sit down for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I'm making it happen. And I think a lot of it is I've started to see how much it helps me. And I think that's the biggest challenge, right? With your clients, with my clients, is like, how do you get them to do something that they know to do, even though they might not feel like it's a good thing for them. It might be really hard and they might not feel like they're doing it right, but we know it's like the one thing, not the one thing, there's several, right? That really will make a profound difference if they just stick with it.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
They're not burning calories on the treadmill. They're not, eating their whatever super green smoothies. I mean, it's like just seeing that, it's such a mindset shift.
Yeah, really, absolutely. Absolutely. I had a really interesting conversation with a guy over the weekend, and he said something so profound and I was like, oh, that's everything. And what he said was, I work really hard to make my life really easy. And I think this like speaks to what we're talking about. It's like, yeah, for a lot of people, meditation is hard. For a lot of people, taking an hour out of your day to meditate and read and visualize and do, that can be like labeled as like hard. But like, are we willing to do that to make the other 23 hours of our existence a lot easier? Like that for me is like a no-brainer.
One of my yoga teachers said, the hard way leads to the easy life and the easy life leads to the hard life, or something similar to that. Just kind of speaking to what that guy said, it's like, and I don't want to say that all easy things mean that life will be hard, but for sure, there are some things that go against the grain of how we operate.
Yeah.
And I think, I think we're kind of faced right now with this challenge being now tenfold because, you know, I have 3 kids and they all have their phones. And so when you talk about distraction, right, you talk about like, what does it take to, when your body feels uncomfortable, when you're upset and all you want to do is like dive into the Oreos, like all you have to do is just pull up Facebook or Instagram or something on your phone that can like take away. Right. And so what we're, you know, I think now more than ever, getting people to see the value of just a few minutes of just like being awake, like really awake in their body.
For sure. Ooh, I love that.
So important. It's so important, but no one, like, I think we've got to say it more and more, and then we've got to do it more and more. And then we need to just get more people out there that are like, yeah, like this is what's needed, so that it becomes, you know, just part of that conversation that people are having on a regular basis, like the cool thing to do.
That's it. And I think our world, I know our world prides ourselves in being busy. Like, it's like, hey, how you doing? Oh my God, let me tell you how busy I am. And what I'm doing right now is I realize that me being busy is actually me just avoiding, right? So like when I fill up my schedule, when I fill up my calendar, it's like, okay, Sam, there's something that I'm not like willing to look at. And I'm so much more productive when I don't do anything. I know that sounds like crazy, but like, let me explain. Like when I have like space in my calendar and I just allow myself to like feel and experience life and not be so externally consumed, then I can be internally engaged. And so it's really interesting because like, everyone says they're so busy and everyone assumes everyone's so busy. And so something that I really love communicating to people is like telling them how not busy I am. You know, it's like people assume that, people assume I'm really busy, right? They're like, you're everywhere. You're here and you're there and you're doing this and you're doing that. And I'm like, it may seem like that from the outside, but actually on a day-to-day, like I'm not actually that busy. And I love that about, you know, and so if I was at the Apple store yesterday and the guy was like, I don't want to waste your time because I know you're really busy. And I was like, I'm not actually, I just have literally nothing to do today. And he looked at me like, oh my God, you're the first person that's ever said that. But it's like, I choose simplicity so that my inner journey, my inner integration can be more powerful because I'm very clear that that's where all the work is. And I can be like, when I commit to that, I can be as productive as I want to be, you know, and the things that I thought were so important that I had to get done and the people that I had to meet with. And it's like when I take space and I just observe and I get into like that space and silence, I was like, oh, don't need to have that coffee date. Don't need to email back that person. I don't need to do this. Like, it just makes everything so clear. But when you're in the weeds, it's like hard to like navigate that.
Yeah. I look at that as like the gerbil wheel, you know, you know, I work with professional women, and I do that because I feel really passionate around women who I know are holding themselves back around their relationship with food, because of their relationship with food, because of their relationship with their body. And I see, because I was one of these women who are just, you know, overtaken by these relationships, that they're holding themselves back in other areas of their life.
Right.
Maybe not going for a promotion, maybe not going for being in really the relationship they know that they could be in, whatever that is. But to your point, Samantha, is that those women don't know what it's like to have that space in their life, you know, because chances are they're working full time, they're busting it, right? They probably have children at home that they're trying to take care of. And then they're trying to say, well, where do I fit into this picture? And, you know, like, I don't have a choice. I have to work. I have to do this. I have to, you know, keep working hard at my career and getting ahead and all that sort of thing. And then meanwhile, they're counting calories and stepping on the scale every day and questioning what they ate and how much they ate. And, you know, so for them to be free of that, it's like a chicken and the egg, because they need that space. And then they get that space. So they need their space for freedom. And then they get that space when they are able to free themselves from all of the things that are like consuming what's up in their head.
Yeah, absolutely. If we were to talk about freedom as how that feels in your body, how can you describe how freedom feels in your body?
Well, for sure, space.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, and if any, like I look at it like I know I don't feel free when I'm all up in my head.
Mm-hmm.
When I am thinking and worrying and rehashing, like that feels like jail to me. And I hear it from the women I work with too, because you can hear the like tension and the questioning in their, almost in their speaking, right? And so the freedom is being able to drop in, as I say, like drop in below your below your throat, and just be able to like just feel what's there, and be able to literally say, I have the space in time, like, and being able to just absorb what my body is feeling like.
Yeah.
Am I hungry? Am I not hungry? Do I need to rest? Do I not need to rest?
Yeah.
And like letting the freedom of letting your body be that feedback for you, instead of thinking that, all of it just sits up in your head.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the things, as I mentioned, I'm an accountant, and I still work as an accountant. I actually have my own firm. And so I'm a numbers person, right? And there's nothing more like being in your head than calculating. And I got this from you in your book too, right? Like you got this, right? Like I remember you told the story about like sitting down at your desk and opening up like your app that counted whatever it was, right? And yeah, I get that. And so I get how numbers are something that are so up here in your head, so reliable, right? For people who have been trained to count them and analyze them and tell stories around them.
Totally.
Step on the scale, you tell a story, you measure fat grams, you measure protein grams, whatever they are. And then, I had to make this leap around kind of leaving the numbers and everything that was in my head to being able to say, oh, wait a second, this needs to be a different process, a different conversation. Like the way to freedom does not start in my head. It's all about getting into your body.
Yeah. So you fit the client avatar, if you will, for the majority of the people that I work with, and probably you work with too, right? Like very intelligent, high performing. A lot of women that I work with are like perfectionists to the core. Not saying or suggesting you're that, but that's just like what we deal with. I know I was for sure. And it's funny. It's like, and I still am, but I have that shit on lock. It's like, I know when those traits are coming up. I was like, okay, I'm wearing my mask of perfectionism right now because I'm actually failing to see that I'm actually afraid of this, And so like now like being, it's like, I know that I can take it off at any, like, I know when it's on, but it's like a subconscious putting it back on. And then I'm like, oh, that doesn't serve anymore. Let me put that to the side. But it's interesting because a lot of women, it's like the thought of actually like being in our bodies, there's so much resistance to that, like what you talked about, like, can you go below the neck? Like for a lot of women, it's like, there's just like, it's like dead zone, like it's numb. Yeah. And so what are some of the things that how do you inspire people to take that leap? Like, how do you talk to someone who's never been in their body, has no reference, has no context, doesn't know viscerally how that feels? Like, what are some of the ways that you inspire women or coach women to integrate back in?
Yeah. Well, I'm a trained yoga teacher. So, I've got, and honestly, that was probably one of the ways for me that I was able to get to this place of healing, is because I could be on my mat dripping in sweat, and all of a sudden, I felt the lightness that came from just feeling my breath coming in and out of my body. And I was like, oh, this feels really nice. I'm not up in my head. I get to just feel my rib cage expand.
Yeah.
Like, and the simplicity of that, getting back to that simple conversation again. Like, it's not so through my own process, I realized, when I start working with someone who's, chances are they've never practiced yoga, they don't really meditate, like right away, I'll do some very simple breathing practices. And a lot of times too, throughout a conversation, I'll be like, so where do you feel this in your body? And they'll say, I have no idea. I'm like, okay, well, hold on. Let's take a couple deep breaths. And I'm like, now the sensation can be super subtle. Like it could be a light pressure. It can be a little, a little tension here. And, they're there, the body, bodies are constantly like shooting out those little messages, but there's an unwillingness, or they don't quite have a skill set yet to even listen. So just taking that like body scan, and then kind of like just also kind of reaffirming for them, like, hey, I know you wanted to not think that that was something, but it was, and it was something big. And what I have found is that like the more I listen and the more little pings I get, I'm like, ooh, that's something. Like, that's not for me to dismiss that. That's something for me to tune into. And it could be, it's just a little, like I explore it with interest. And so I try to, I encourage my clients to do the same, like be interested and curious around that. And that can be helpful too, for them to kind of like explore what's going on in their body.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so interesting. It's like feeling and being intuitive is like, that's how we are designed to navigate. That's how we're designed to live. Right. And we wonder like, why are we so stressed out? Why is there so much disease? It's like, well, we're not actually using our bodies effectively. It's like we're relying on our like intellect, our knowledge to like run the show constantly. And so even the thought of being in our bodies is a very confronting experience. And I love the whole concept of curiosity. It's like, okay, well, you have no context to what this feels like, but can you cultivate the curiosity and the openness to just at least explore what that might be like? Like my entire existence, my entire life changed when I got into my body. And it's so interesting. When people meet me from high school, they're like, your voice has completely changed. And this is like, this for me was like, I didn't realize this, but like when I was in high school, I was so up in my head. I was so concerned. I was like wearing the mask. I was hustling for my worth. I was like trying to prove myself. And like, I was talking like that. Maybe not like that, but like, you know what I mean? Like it was like my voice changed when I got into my body because I got more integrated. I got more like centered. And so it's like I speak from more of a place of like power. And of course, there's still work to do, of course. Maybe one day I'll sound like a man. No, I'm just kidding. Like, oh, actually, I discovered that I'm like actually a dude. No. But what I mean by that is like, can we cultivate the curiosity and the openness? Like, and that's all. And I think like, I don't know if you get this with your clients, but I get this a lot. It's like, they say to me, they're like, yeah, but Sam, if I feel that pain, I'm going to get stuck there. Like, that's like that's like this fear, and it's a very real fear. And I'm not like belittling it or dismissing it at all. But something I throw back at them is like, do you ever fear that you're going to get stuck in happiness? Because it's the same thing. It's just an emotion. It's just a sensation. Right. And so it's super interesting. Super interesting. So
I remember I had a very similar fear to that. I mean, at a really, young age, I mean, we all have our own challenging childhoods, right? Without having to dive into it. And I remember feeling like, if I feel this, I'm going to cry so much, like it's going to be a faucet you can't shut off.
Yeah.
And just so interestingly, I was like, what, how did I get that thought? Like where did that fear come from? And we know, right? It comes from that very small part of us that's afraid to really show these dark sides. And then we sort of develop this, right? The fear of feeling. And, when I had to get past, and it was for a couple practices, right? Like there was a couple times where I was either confronted or sad, and I just had a willingness to sit with it. And I found that every time I sat with a big emotion, nothing bad happened. Like I wasn't struck by lightning. I didn't die. Like the tears did in fact stop. If anything, I felt lighter and freer after. And the emotion moved quicker. Yeah. So every time I tried to push against it, it stayed longer. And then when I let it in, it was like, oh, this is just going to move itself through. And it generally moved up. And I was like, all right, well, that's kind of cool. So that gave me the confidence to just sort of say, yeah, I can be with emotion and it not take me out.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. 100%.
so yeah, that was like
Yeah.
the big thing, definitely.
It's so interesting. When I was younger, my parents are amazing. I don't blame them for screwing me up. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not screwed up. But but something my mom used to always say to me was, Sam, you're just so sensitive. Sam, you're so sensitive. And it's like she didn't mean like, so, and how I consumed that message, like, so the intentionality behind the message was like, it was coming from a place of love. It was like, Sammy, it's okay. You don't have to be so upset about that. But the consumption of that was, I'm too sensitive for her. And in order for me to be loved by her, I need to shut off my emotions. And this is funny because I was visiting last month and she said the same thing, you know, and now I have hindsight. I'm like, this is actually a good thing. Being sensitive is my superpower, but how I consumed it previously was like, oh, that's a bad thing. And if I'm too sensitive, I'm not going to get love from my mom. So I'm going to like shut off my emotions and pretend that everything's fine. And I'll be the girl that doesn't make a scene, doesn't do anything wrong. And so that is what ultimately like led me into this like spiral of an eating disorder. Not solely because of that, of course, but it was like, for me, it's like I made being sensitive a bad thing. Like that's how I consumed the message that was told me. The intentionality behind the message, totally different. But how I consumed it as a child was, that's not right. And I need to be loved. So therefore I should not be sensitive. And so I think for me, it was like giving myself permission to actually just feel and be like, oh, I can be okay with this sadness right now. Like I can be okay with just like allowing it to be in my body and like not having to shut it down, because actually like when I feel emotion, that's when I am loved, because I create more intimacy with people. And I don't pretend that everything's fine, or I don't pretend that like I'm happy all the time. It's like, that's what actually connects me with people. And so this is like something like I'm so passionate about, like teaching people, is like, what you think is broken is actually your superpower, you know, like that's actually the thing that people love. Right. And like this whole topic of like, we need to have our shit on lock and pretend that everything's shiny all the time. It's like, it's actually creating so much disconnection in our planet and with ourselves.
Yeah. And to your point, in our relationships, I mean, I was coaching a woman yesterday who was really struggling with anger. And I know this is one thing for me too. It's like, it's not fun to be angry. It's not fun to be pissed off at people. It's not fun, like, especially the people that we love, right? Kind of going to them and saying, you hurt me and I'm not happy about it, because then we want to look at our, like what we thought hurt us, and then we dissect it and analyze it. And what it creates like a fearful reaction when we don't express it, right? Doesn't it? Like I'm hurt, therefore maybe you need to hurt too, or I'm going to keep a safe distance because I don't want you to hurt me again. And just to your point, like feeling that emotion gives us access to loving more, because when we're not angry, what do we get to do, right? We get to be with who we are, and we get to be with that person. But we can't just push the anger away. We gotta just kind of
for sure
be with it. So
I love getting angry. I've told this story once before on the podcast, but when I bought a vehicle recently up in Canada, and then I drove it down to San Diego where I live now. But when I was buying it, I said to the guy as we were going through a test drive, I was like, so how soundproof is this car? He looks at me and goes, well, you know, you can turn up the stereo like on full blast, and there's a subwoofer in it. He's like, and you'll be fine. Like you won't cause too much disruption. I was like, oh no, it's not because of the music. I just love screaming my head off when I'm super angry in my car, and I just don't want everyone to think I'm crazy. He just looks at me like, what's going on right now? Like, awesome. I think he thought I was kidding. I was like, I'm actually totally serious. So yeah, anger is a big one. We actually go into this in depth. I think it's episode number 4, how rage can be your superpower, with Kelsey Grant. For those of you who are like listening to Tara and I speak right now and you're like, I'm totally angry, go check out that episode, because it is, it's baller.
That's good stuff.
It's like, I'm not even going to dive. I could open this kind of worms to you right now, and we could talk about it for 3 hours, but there's something I really want to dig into right now. So before we pressed record on the podcast, I asked you, what is something that's really active for you right now?
Yeah.
And you mentioned the topic of feminism, which is something that's actually never come up on the podcast before, but I really, really want to talk about it because I loved your view on it. And I did a photo shoot the other day, and I posted this photo of this me in this t-shirt, and it says, the future is female. And I got a lot of flack for it. I got a lot of flack for it, saying like, no, that's not the case, that the future is integrated, which I do believe. And honestly, like I'm not like an activist. I'm not a feminist. I'm not like, I don't actually like wave my flag, and that's not my jam. And I didn't really think of anything with the shirt. I was like, it's just a shirt. I'm just going to wear it and take a picture, whatever. Like, it's not like I was like, yes, feminism. But it's something that I definitely appreciate people's views on, and I would love yours on how feminism relates to body image and eating issues.
Sure. Well, what just came up for me too is like, when do we get an equal seat at the table, right?
Yeah.
Like when so whether it's man or woman, like let's just say, that we haven't gotten an equal seat. We haven't gotten equal pay. Right? And there's a whole bunch of other issues that we could probably bring up around access to healthcare and all of these other things that just haven't been the same.
For
and
sure.
So I think it's safe to say that.
Yeah.
So when do we get it? Like, when do we get to step our toe at the same starting line that men do? And we're not at that same starting line. We're way behind. And, when you look at, and so it's, it's well documented that, have you seen the movie Embrace?
She's one of my, Taryn Brumford. Yeah. She's cool.
So she does a fabulous job. And what I love about her in that movie as well is she talks about men, right? She gives a quick blurb on them, but she actually highlights something really important about how these messages that women are receiving are really, really destructive and really detrimental. And those messages were created by men. Now, what's present for me is around the women I coach, because I'm coaching, professional women just as you are, right? Highly educated, go-getters, super hardworking. And the question is, if they weren't challenged with food, if they didn't hate their body, what would be available to them? What would open up for them? What would they get to do? What would they go for? Why could they not be held back? Like, if this wasn't like something they had to quote unquote deal with. And for the longest time, I was like, why do I feel like I need to lose 10 more pounds? Why do I feel like I need to do that? And then I woke up and I realized, I looked at my relationship with my mother. I looked at the other kids that I went to high school with. I looked at the magazine pictures, and, I kind of woke up to why this was created in our society. And then I took a strong look. It's like, through my professional career, sure, I've been successful, but what if I didn't have a library of 50 diet books? What if I didn't spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars trying to resolve all of this on my own, because there was this constant fighting of food and this constant need to lose weight? Like, so are men doing that? Well, I don't know. I guess I could go ask them, but I don't care to, because I know women are.
Right? Yeah.
I am, and other women are. And I'm just, why I feel like this is such a feminist issue is because women are really, they're asked to be stepped back. And, and if you just took the diet industry and said, hold on, stop pouring money to marketing to young girls and women around how their bodies need to look and the next diet that they need to take on, then what would those women go for? Like, what business would they start? What, right? Like
seriously, it's like, that's everything. That's everything. It's like, why F are we so busy talking about food and body? That shit doesn't matter. You know,
Yeah.
it's like the fact that my company actually exists pisses me off. Like it really does. It's like, why do we have to do this? And so it's like, that was a funny comment. I don't know where that came from, but it's true.
No,
Obviously,
I get it. Why am I doing? Yeah, why am I doing what I'm doing? Like,
that's literally how filtered I am. I just said my own existence pisses me off. But it's true. It's like I look at what I'm doing, and like, so last night I was in a webinar with all the society women, and I just looked at them and I bawled my eyes out. I'm like, it literally makes me so upset that we're talking about this right now. You know? It's like, and it's not about the food and body conversation. It's like, I see beyond this. It's like you see the struggle because you're, you know, for those of you just listening on audio, I'm holding up a jar, right? So they see the struggle. They're in the jar. That's their entire existence is the jar. And it's like, I see like way past that jar of like what you're actually capable of doing once the food and body conversation is done. Because for me, it's not about like healing food and body. That's a very small piece of it. It's like, but once we do that, then what do we have access to? Which is to your point, right? It's like we can do so much on this planet. Like we can heal the planet, we can help, we can serve, we can contribute, we can become the highest, best, and most authentic versions of ourselves. So why are we spending our entire existence fucking with food? Like it drives me mental.
Right. And here's the other nuance. I mean, I know it drives me.
I'm like sweating. Like that just got me all riled up.
and here's the other thing is, you know, I have a daughter, right? And she has friends, and I look and I'm like, whoa, like she is thankfully I've broken a cycle, right? Mm-hmm. I've broken a cycle, and I'm able to have like really real conversations with her around just how to approach food. Yeah. And you know, her friends have gone to her and been like, now she just turned 12, has said, hey Anna, will you be on this diet with me?
Wow.
Mommy, so-and-so wants me to go on this diet with her, and I want to support her, so we're going to do all these like leg lifts.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Like, okay, well, Anna, stop. Mm-hmm. And I have to go back through her. So, you know, it's just a really open conversation. But here's the thing is that we only do what we know to do.
Yeah.
And we can't look at our moms and be like, it's because of you screwed us up. You fucked us up. Like if you didn't, you know, my mom took me to OA meetings when I was like 8 years old, not because I needed OA, it's because she went.
Right.
And then I kind of soaked in the OA experience. Mm-hmm. And then, but yet, you know, now we can't heal the next generation until we heal ourselves. And totally. So it's like it starts right here, right now.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You know, yeah. Women with children or not, like we need, in our healing isn't just for our children, it's also for our mothers. Our healing is for our children, our mothers, our grandparents who also thought that they weren't good enough and they needed to restrict and they didn't see their own worthiness.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
You know, so the healing goes in both past and future.
Yeah.
And so why this is a feminist issue is exactly what you're talking about. Like we need to set our whole generation free and our whole community free. And then, it will be, you know, then we will be at the starting line. We will be. Yeah. We will be. And we don't need to compete with men. We don't. Right. Yeah. But we need to make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. And if women are overtaken and consumed and worried about what they're eating and what their body looks like and constantly just so much of their mind share is taken over, then they have nothing left for anything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the point. And so one of the things that one of someone's comments on that photo I posted was, like this whole concept of integration and like the feminine and the harmony, the balance, the feminine masculine integration. And I love that. But can we have integration without us owning our power first? My view is no. I think in order for us to be integrated as both energies and as men and women, beautifully integrated, we have to own our power first.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. And I like people, like I know people don't have to agree with that, but like that's my belief. and my
Well,
experience.
and I think what you're talking about or pointing at is this idea of full-on acceptance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
so when we own our power, then we're really kind of staking we're, you know, putting a stake in the ground, and we're saying, this is who we are, exactly as we are, man, woman,
Mm,
whoever, right? Men
yeah.
owning their power requires the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And it's not fighting against ourselves. It's not wishing we were different. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
saying, hey, I'm showing up here exactly as I am.
Yeah.
And that is an integration. That
Yeah.
is absolutely an integration.
For sure, for sure. So just as like a little takeaway for everyone listening, and if this is a conversation that you're excited about, I want you to actually take a moment and think about, if you were to stop fighting food and hating your body, what would you do? Like, what does your soul want to do? Like, that's a conversation. Cause I think without like the creation of like what we actually want to pass the struggle, it's hard for us to like get our heads around this. So I want everyone to think about this. Like, if I was to stop fighting with food, what would that be like? Like, what would I do? And for those of you listening, go to hungryforhappiness.com/Facebook, pop it in the global group, and just let us know. Tag us, let us know, like, what would you do if you didn't spend 95% of your entire existence worrying about food or feeling guilty or hating your body or trying to change your body? Like, we would set this freaking planet on fire. We would. It'd be incredible. I could talk to you all day about this.
I know, this is really fun. Yeah, and you know what you're pointing to? That's an awesome question. And you know, we talked at the beginning about how do you get people to do what they know to do, right? And they're kind of like, oh, I know it intellectually,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't know it. Like, I haven't done it. And like, I think what you just pointed to was like perfect, because when people are like, I'm doing this because I want my daughter to not go through what I went through.
Yeah, yeah,
Because when
yeah.
I'm not struggling, I get to go to a barbecue with my neighbor and totally relax and with my
Yeah.
neighbors and totally like whatever, you know, it's like that whole Simon Sinek, like personal why, right? That whole idea of like, why do we want to show up? But, you know, it's like really understanding and articulating personally, why do you want to make the change you want to make?
Yeah, yeah, and it has to be bigger than you. You know, it has to be bigger than you.
Yeah.
If you do it just for yourself, like, it has to be bigger than you. It's so funny. Like, I've always said, I've wanted boys. Like, I want 2 boys. And
Yeah.
listening to you, I'm like, oh, I want a girl. So then I can like tell her all the things, and then she could tell all the other girls all the things.
I have 2 boys and a girl.
Oh, you have 2 boys and a girl. Okay, that's like, see, 3 kids. Could I take 3 kids?
You
Maybe.
never know. You never know.
Maybe.
And it is funny because I am talking to the boys just about as much about food as I am to Anna. Like,
Yeah.
I am. I mean, it's that same, like, they're definitely processing it differently, but I'm definitely having that
Totally.
conversation. And,
Gosh.
you know, probably one other thing that I'd love to just be able to share, and I think this is pointing to a lot of what we're talking about, is like, I want people to feel hopeful.
Yeah.
You know, like, I want people to just realize that there's a way out. And I love your work. I love your book. And that's why we're doing what we're doing, right? Is because we know that we didn't feel hopeful for a long time and we didn't have answers. And then we found the answers ourselves. And it was, it wasn't an easy journey. It wasn't a short journey, but
yeah,
you know, kind of like, I know why I show up and why you show up is because other women don't have to struggle the way I struggled.
Yeah.
And that I believe that, just as we talked about that stillness and tapping into our body, like, our bodies and our souls are in a motion of healing. They're in the motion of wanting to feel more connected and more integrated. And it's a natural force.
Yeah.
And if people can just acknowledge that they have that within themselves and be able to say, whoa, I need to do something different. 2, I need to be able to sit and be still.
Yeah.
And really trust the inner wisdom of my body.
Yes. Yeah.
And that they absolutely can feel hopeful around finding a way out and really making a huge difference in the world.
That's it. Yeah. Because it goes beyond the struggle with food. I know for those of you listening, you're like, that's my whole life. And I get that. I was there. I totally understand. And it doesn't have to be. That's your choice. That's your choice. So I've loved this conversation. I feel like that went by so quick.
Are we finished? Oh my gosh, yeah.
I know. I looked at the time. I was like, goodness gracious, that went by quickly. So thank you. I loved this conversation. I loved that bringing this how this relates to feminism into these conversations. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of interest on this. So maybe it's a topic that we go deeper on next time. So for those of you listening, I will put all the links to how people can find you, your work, your beautiful writing in the show notes. It's www.tara-whitney.com, but I'll put that all in the show notes for those listening, and they can get in contact with you and read your beautiful stuff.
Great.
Alrighty.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a beautiful day.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye for now.
Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode on the Hungry for Happiness podcast. You can join the conversation with women just like yourself at hungryonfacebook.com. Until next week, ladies, stay classy and badassy.